Ukrainian drone strike on Russian military airfields will lead to escalation of war, and this article includes Russia's answer to this. What happened to the Ukrainian drones in the attack on the two Russian military airfields? One of them was just south of Moscow. Can you believe that? The drone attacks by Ukrainian forces on airfields in Dyagilevo in Ryazan region and Engels in Saratov region inside Russian territory west of Moscow may not have caused significant damage to Russian military airfields, but will lead to new escalation of the war. Russian President Putin called the National Security Council of Russia. Apparently, the Russian air defense shot down some of the drones launched by the Ukrainian forces, but two did find their target, and this proves that the air defense systems are not 100% ready to deal with drones. The drones are quite fast, obviously. Now, the new attacks by the Ukrainians, which was a blow against Russia's prestige, will lead to an escalation of the war. We remind you that after the Ukrainian attack on the bridge in Crimea, the Russian forces responded with a barrage of bombings that in total destroyed 50% of Ukraine's energy infrastructure. The new Ukrainian drone attack on two Russian military airfields wounded 4 and very likely lead to an escalation of the war in Ukraine. 3 were victims, maintenance personnel. What happened to the Ukrainian drones in the attack on the two Russian military airfields? We have images in this article of Engels military airfield in the Saratov region within Russia territory show traces of drone crash near the Tu-22M3 bomber. The Russian Tu-22M3 bomber suffered damage to its tail, wings, and engine. One of the main issues with this type of damage is that the engines for the Tu-22M3 have been discontinued. Therefore, the number of spare parts and accessories for them is limited. Production of these engines ended during the Yeltsin era. In this light, the ongoing work of the project to design a new long-range bomber, which would replace the Tu-22M3, is of great importance. The American company Maxar released satellite images of the Engels Air Base in the Saratov region within Russia's territory. High-resolution images show no significant damage to the airport. On the morning of December 5th, yesterday that is, Ukraine attempted to attack the Soviet UAVs, the military airfield at Dyagilevo in Ryazan region and Engels in Saratov region in an attempt to destroy Russian long-range craft. Russian air defense forces intercepted Ukrainian UAVs while flying at low altitude. Crashing and exploding debris at Russian airfields caused minor hull armor damage to 2 Russian bombers. And this is Russia's answer, her response. In response, Russia launched missile attacks on Ukrainian defense facilities, communication hubs, power plants, and military units. A total of 17 designated targets were hit. The new Russia strike disrupted transportation of Ukrainian military reserves, foreign weapons, military equipment, and ammunition to the war zones via railways. Russia launched KH-105, 101, KH-555 caliber missiles into Ukraine territory in 17 airstrikes, and they launched 70 missiles while Russia forces also carried out 38 attacks with multiple launch missile systems. Ukrainians failed, but escalation is coming. There is no doubt that the drone strike was a failed attempt to shoot down long-range bombers used to strike Ukraine's military targets and energy infrastructure. But the new attack by the Ukrainians showed that they can achieve hits on targets with a range of 1,000 kilometers. It should be noted that the Ukrainian armed forces actively use Soviet-era UAVs, such as the Tu-141 with a range of 1,000 kilometers. Specifically after the start of the conflict in East Ukraine in the spring of 2014, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense decided to increase the effectiveness of its aerial reconnaissance. In this context, they modernized the Tu-141 UAVs. In March 2022, another Ukrainian UAV modernization project was revealed. The Ukrainians installed a non-standard high-mass warhead on the UAV, thus turning the Tu-141 into a de facto long-range but low-precision cruise missile. At least one Tu-141 UAV was used in a failed strike on Crimea territory March 2022. This modernization program is probably underway with the help of NATO experts. Overview of Ukrainian UAV attacks in Russia. Thus, Ukrainian forces already have and are using means to hit targets inside Russia. Even with the limited success of a strike, this factor can hardly be ignored by the Russian leadership. Therefore, it will require an increase in air defense measures in Russia. However, this threat can hardly be completely eliminated without the complete dismantling of the military capabilities of the Ukrainian regime. And this I've translated for you from a Greek article. The Ministry of National Defense of Russia reported that the losses of the armed forces of Ukraine in November amounted to 8,300 soldiers. Ukraine also lost 5 aircraft, 10 helicopters, 149 tanks, and more than 300 armored fighting vehicles. American Admiral says Ukraine attacks on Russia are a dangerous turning point, saying the news of major attacks against 2 Russian air bases is a new and dangerous turning point in the war in Ukraine, said U.S. Admiral James Stavridis, former top commander of NATO forces, in an article published in Bloomberg. Ukraine risks escalation, but has nothing to lose once it is a war. He says these attacks may have been calibrated to simply serve as a demonstration of Ukrainian capability. The Admiral says in the future, Ukraine could do more, but it should be careful to hit only purely military targets, maintaining its advantage over Russia in terms of international law. According to former top commander of NATO forces, Western backers will try to prevent the Ukrainians from launching large-scale attacks, hoping to reduce the risk of a further conflict with Russia. NATO will try to appease the Ukrainians by offering more and better surface-to-air missiles to defend their cities and may seriously consider supplying fighter jets. Kiev has every right to retaliate against targets inside Russia, Stavridis says, noting that drone attacks should weaken on a seemingly invulnerable internal front. Ukraine will receive new military aid. Ukrainian Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov said he is confident Ukraine will receive more tanks from NATO and also fighter jets, but I remain optimistic and believe, he says, that tanks from NATO countries, and not just Leopards, will appear on the battlefield. I'm convinced that we will have tanks and even fighter jets, the Ukrainian Defense Minister said. This is from a Greek article, Banking News. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.